All right, let's get right into it. We're tackling a massive question today. Is Gen Z, the generation walking into the workforce right now, actually ready for the future of work? I mean, really ready? It's a huge deal, so let's unpack it.
You know, the world of work that we're all heading into, it's not your grandparents' career path. It's all about constant change, constant learning. And the one thing that's going to determine success more than anything else isn't just about being smart. It's about having the right mindset.
So what do we mean by the right mindset? Well, Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck gave us this brilliant way to think about it. On one side, you've got the fixed mindset. This is the voice in your head that says you're either good at something or you're not. So you avoid challenges because, hey, why risk looking dumb? But on the other side, you got the growth mindset. This is the belief that your brain is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Challenges aren't scary. They're how you get better.
Now, in the economy we're living in, it's pretty obvious which one of these gives you an edge. The pace of change is just insane. A growth mindset isn't some fluffy, feel-good idea anymore. Honestly, it's a straight-up survival tool. And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. Check out this number from the World Economic Forum. They're predicting a 64% deficit of workers with the right skills by 2025. That is a massive gap. And the only way to close it is with people who are constantly learning, constantly adapting, people with a growth mindset. So the billion-dollar question is, does Gen Z have it? To figure that out, we're going to dig into this really cool study on high school students in Russia. The researchers really wanted to get past the stereotypes and see what's actually going on. And the first thing they found was actually pretty encouraging. So they just asked them. They put out a survey, and one question was basically, what's more important to you, learning something new or getting an A? And overwhelmingly, the students said learning was more important. So on paper, it looks great, right? They're saying all the right things. It sounds like a total growth mindset. But, and this is a big but, what happens when it's not just a survey? It's one thing to say you love a challenge. It's a whole other thing to actually choose the harder path when a good grade is on the line. So what did these students do when their choice really mattered? This is where the researchers got clever. They moved beyond just asking questions and set up a real-world experiment to see what the students would actually do. And the gap between what they said and what they did was shocking. The students got a choice. Do a simple task you know you can ace, or try a much harder one where you'll learn more but might not get the top grade. And despite everything they said in the survey, only 11% chose the harder task. The vast majority played it safe. They took the easy A. And this points to something researchers are now calling a false growth mindset. It's where you know the right things to say. Oh yeah, I love challenges. I believe in learning. But when push comes to shove, that old fixed mindset, the fear of looking bad takes the wheel. The need to look smart ends up being more important than the chance to get smarter. And get this tendency even pops up in their language. The study looked at the slang that Russian Gen Z uses on places like TikTok. And what they found was a huge preference for short, easy, borrowed words from English, like cringe, instead of the more complex Russian word for cringe. The researchers call this an economy of effort. It's a habit of taking the path of least resistance, which, when you think about it, is exactly what a fixed mindset does.
Okay, so if just believing in a growth mindset isn't enough, then what is? Well, the research points to something much more active, a more powerful idea, proactive. It's not about what you think, it's about what you do. And a key part of that is this idea called job crafting. There's this old story that explains it perfectly. A traveler sees 3 stonecutters and asks them what they're doing. The first guy grunts, "I'm cutting a stone." The second one says, "I'm earning a living." But the third one, he looks up and with a spark in his eye, he says, "I'm building a great cathedral." See? Same job, but the third guy isn't just doing a task. He's crafting his work by connecting it to a bigger purpose. So how do you do that? Well, job crafting really breaks down into 3 things anyone can do. First, there's task crafting. That's changing what you do day to day. Then there's relationship crafting, changing who you work with, maybe finding a mentor. And finally, there's cognitive crafting, and that's the stonecutter, right? It's changing how you think about your job, reframing it to see the bigger picture. But here's a little twist. It turns out that just being proactive isn't always a good thing. Taking initiative can have a light side and a dark side. The research shows there are really 2 different flavors of proactivity. Now, we don't have to get lost in the weeds here, but the main idea is this. When your drive to take initiative comes from a place of purpose and self-confidence, what they call the light triad, it leads to amazing growth.
But if it's driven by fear and insecurity, the dark triad, it just leads to burnout. So why you're taking action matters just as much as what you're doing.
So in the end, the future of work isn't just something that's going to happen to us. It's something we have to actively build. I love this quote from Chris Grosser. Opportunities don't come by themselves, you create them. That's it. That's the core idea of being ready for whatever is coming next.
And that brings the whole thing right back to us. Not just Gen Z, but all of us. So ask yourself, are you just going through the motions, just doing a job? Or are you actively crafting it into something more? Are you just cutting stone, or are you building a cathedral? The answer to that question might just define your future.